Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Fireside Chat. As you can see, I'm not in my typical office at home. I'm down in Charlotte visiting my daughter, and I'm sitting on her deck that is fully equipped with anything and everything I would want. So I've kind of set up an office here, and now the sun just decided to pop through the pergola roof. But we're joined today by Fran Coppola, or I'm sorry, how do you pronounce that?
Capoccia.
Coach Pochia. Did I say
Capoccia.
Pochia? Oh boy, I butchered. Sorry, I should have asked that earlier.
Yeah.
uh, and I know Fran from several other mastermind classes that we do together. And Fran's bio is really very interesting. She is highly knowledgeable in plant-based instructor, and she's a chef and also a prayer minister. That is really a nice combination. Her passion is to help individuals transform their health with from toxins, overcome emotional barriers to wellness, and liberate clients from biblical roots of disease. In her booklet, Lahaim to Life Manifesto, Fran shares her personal story of dramatic healing. Those 5 steps provide a framework that is easily duplicated to achieve the highest level of well-being. Fran Fran is certified in plant-based instructor at a retreat center in Michigan, and she was also certified as a prayer minister in Alaska. She has led her own courses, chef trainings, and retreats. And one more thing, she has 3 lovely children and she resides in Ohio, but she enjoys the beach like the rest of us. So, and by the way, I absolutely love Alaska. I would give anything to go back there.
Oh, yeah.
So I welcome you, Fran, and I appreciate you doing this today. Um, I would like to start off with asking Fran some questions. And so here's probably what's really important is how did you get introduced to this a life with plant-based foods?
Well, thank you for having me today, Debbie. It's an honor to be here. This is just an interesting story of something I was not looking into or researching, but I had a skin cancer spot, and a doctor called me, left a message on my phone, which kind of threw me for a loop, like, you have a skin cancer spot. And I was really upset by that, that whole cancer thing. And so I had a colleague that I knew who had a wellness place, and she started telling me, oh, well, that's not a big deal. And she literally brought me 15 books and equipment on how to deal with any kind of disease, basically. And since I had a nursing degree, I was in awe as I read these books because I hadn't seen that kind of thing when I worked, as a nurse in a hospital. Not that I'm against the medical system, but I just saw people getting sicker and sicker, and I was not very happy with that. So this was just literally placed in my lap, these books, the equipment. And I honestly I'm a faith-based person, and I give God all the glory for that, for giving me this information.
What kind of nurse were you? Were you a nurse around here, around Ohio?
Yeah, I worked at Ohio State for about a year and a half as a gen med, and a lot of people had like diabetes, and mostly diabetes. And that's why when I read all these testimonies, especially people like with diabetes, even though the books I read also dealt a lot with cancer, I was just amazed. I'm like, I never saw people getting better with diabetes. I saw them getting worse and worse and more systems failing. And I was 20s and I was literally exhausted every time I went home. I just said, I can't do this. It's just, so I was thankful to get some new information about health. And my whole thing was I wanted to help people. And I just it was hard to help people when, they're that sick. So
It
yeah.
is. And they have their mindset is I'm sick, and they're scared.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me more about your experience at the health center during your health challenge.
Well, that was the second part of what happened after I got all this equipment. And the colleague that had this wellness center, she also told me about um, this health center that was up in Michigan. And so I thought, well, I would like to learn how to do this because I had read the books, but I needed to see this was like new skills, new. I mean, I hadn't heard about a lot of these things. And especially this was in 2007. So you couldn't, like today, you can go to even Myers or Walmart and get all kinds of plant-based substitutes. But at that time, like you couldn't even get hemp seeds or, that kind of thing. You had to order stuff, from, or really you had to go to a health store at that time. And so as soon my friend said, well, I want to go to the health center because she was all excited that she finally found somebody who was interested in this. And I went up there and I was just amazed at the people. People were just so loving. And after I got the skin cancer spot, I also ended up with a growth the size of a golf ball. And it was because I was under like terrible, terrible stress. And I was in a very, very toxic relationship, to put it
Mhm.
to least. And I really believe that toxicity is what made me sick. It wasn't like that I ate a bad diet or anything like that. But when I went up there, the one thing I saw was that people were so loving. I mean, when you eat
Ah,
a bad diet, people's emotions are usually better and they were happier. I had literally laughed for a week. I had not even laughed. I couldn't even remember when, which is like, wow, that's, and then the other thing I was able to really heal because it was just such a, there was like paths and water creeks, and I just was able to rest from all the, like I said, all the stress and toxicity that was going on. And so the place, right now it's no longer open. And, I was really sad about that when they closed, but
oh yeah.
that's, I had again that little window of opportunity to go up there. And that's where I got my chef training too, because, once I learned how to do this, I mean, I literally, even the first day when I learned about the skin cancer, I was like, I just dropped like eating meat or plant, animal products, not because I'm against that, but as I read these testimonies of what people were doing with plant-based foods and all the neat recipes, there's like amazing recipes. I thought, oh my gosh, I want this, I want the next step. So yeah, that's kind of
Wow.
where, so
Wow.
it was an amazing place, and it was little on a farm type of thing. It wasn't, but just amazing testimonies, people dropping their diabetes medication, having to lower their blood pressure medications. And there weren't doctors here. It was just the food, the wheatgrass and the smoothies. And I was like pretty amazed, by all that, to say the least, let alone I had a healing while I was up there too. So yeah.
Well, did you have the growth removed, or was it, uh, did you have chemo?
No. Well,
Okay.
I went to the doctor and when he saw the growth, it was like in the uterus area. So it was literally growing out of my body, which is gross. But
Ooh,
Um, it was like bleeding and it was really bad. And the doctor, when I went in, he said, we need to remove this tomorrow, is what he told me. But because of the skin cancer growth, this was like 2 years in between. I knew about this food. I read all these testimonies and I was already like making juices and doing all kinds of stuff. I said, wait a minute. If, if I have read all these testimonies, I'm not going to have surgery tomorrow. I got to figure out what to do. And I called all these places because by that time I'd learned about a lot of other retreat centers. And this one in Michigan was the one I went to again. They were like, wow, we don't know, but wheatgrass works on everything. So after 5 days, I just went straight up there and the growth shrunk in 5 days. And I didn't feel none of that blood coming out anymore. Just, it was like totally amazing. And when I went back home, I went back to my doctor and he said to me, you paid money to do this, is what he told me. So I just, it was like, what do I do here? And so what
Yeah,
he
I
still,
paid money and you didn't cut me up.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, I guess I spent my money on this way instead of, but what I ended up doing is he wanted to do like a DNC. So I'm like, okay, just do it, and, it was at that point, once you have something, it's not just your problem. It becomes, friends and family and everybody's well-meaning, but everybody
Right.
gets scared and they're just kept pressuring me, even though I did what I wanted to do. And I was so happy with those results. But I guess I thought, well, okay, I'll just make sure everything's cleaned up, and he really didn't find anything other than he just cleaned up some stuff that, was residual. But yeah, so
Wow.
it was an amazing testimony because I had read all these stories and like I said, had 15 books and I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally have my own testimony now. So yeah, it was pretty
You have
cool.
your own medical library.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I do.
So, in addition to food, what else does living the plant-based food lifestyle um, promise promise you? What does it consist of?
um, well, one thing is water is really important. And, this is a journey. And on last Saturday night, I'm still in touch with one of the people from the health center. She's like 85. She still has people over and does retreats. I mean, she's like one of the most amazing people I've ever met. But I was on a phone call and they have teachers teach every week, and she was talking about water. And she was challenging everybody drink a gallon of water a day. And I've never heard anybody say drink a gallon of water a day. So I'm just mentioning this because I really took that as a challenge for myself. And I've been doing about 3 quarts, which is less than a gallon, but I do like a quart of juice that's cold pressed. And I was like, I really have felt different. And this has only been like the past couple of days. And so I'm just
Wow.
mentioning water, that we're 70% water. And if somebody, like, I didn't do a gallon a day because your kidneys got to filter all that out and it could stress your body out. But I was like, wow, this is so amazing that to drink water. So that's one thing. But the other things are like, I mentioned before, stress, getting that down, getting that filter on, and that includes saying no, because sometimes not saying no leads to more stress.
Yeah.
So that's been a tough one for me, but I'm working on it. Definitely exercise, because if you don't move your blood and all your systems, your body just kind of is really lethargic and it doesn't
Mhm.
work right. I mean, you got to move, and sometime walking is enough,
Yeah.
so I definitely try to do that. And then sunshine, which, I think that's why the Florida thing is so important, because the sun, it's a cleanser too. And it's just amazing what the sunshine does to your body. It's kind of rejuvenating, and sometimes the sun gets bad press, but I'm all for some sunshine because,
Well,
yeah,
there's a lot of people that don't understand what the full benefit of being out in the sunshine really is. They just, a lot of
yeah,
people, oh, I just need the sun to tan and stuff like that. And
yeah,
um, but it really does have a lot of health benefits for a person.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's actually got the full spectrum of color, even though you only see the yellow. And I did a water fast once when I was in Florida. It's the only time I've done, like, I did a 7-day water fast under supervision of a naturopath. And all I craved was being out in the sun. And I think I was literally getting nutrients or whatever a sun gets. So,
wow.
so yeah, that was like, I have never in my life felt better after I did that. And but that's a tough one because the first 3 days are really
Yeah.
rough, and and you need
Yeah.
supervision. So yeah.
Well, the next question I find really fascinating because I'm not aware of what the, but you wrote, what is the difference between juices and smoothies? I thought they were the same thing.
Yeah, a lot of people ask that question because they're not sure like what to do. And the biggest thing on juices is if somebody has a health challenge, that's what my book says, 5 steps to follow when facing a major health challenge. When a person has, like really severe health challenge, their body is usually toxic or deficiency, and most likely it's toxic.
Mhm.
And the quickest way to clear the cells and bring nutrients back in is to do juices because it doesn't have the pulp and your body can digest that really quickly. So that's a kind of the best thing to do. And mostly, like if somebody does have a major health challenge, they are recommending to drink like 8 glasses of carrot juice a day and take certain protocols. And
Wow.
it's pretty amazing what people, even like stage 4, have gone to like some of these health clinics, and if they do that for a couple of weeks, they can reverse that, and that's pretty hard to reverse at that stage.
Yeah.
But they're basically cleaning out the cells. Now, the smoothies are great, but that has pulp, and so that needs to be digested, and it's going to take a little bit longer. It's not that one's better than the other, but I really couldn't even handle smoothies early on too much because I felt like my digestive system had to like work kind of hard to digest all that, even though it's kind of pre-digested because you put it in a blender, so everything's blended. But a lot of people don't realize you still need to chew because or else your body can't digest that as well. But now I drink smoothies once or twice a day, and plus I do these juices, so it's just
Well,
become a way of life.
can you give a brief description of what you use in your smoothie and then what you use in your juices, just to give them an idea of what
Yeah.
the ingredients are?
Well, the one thing for the juices is to use carrots because carrots are like a blood cleanser. So again, when people are toxic, that's like one of the best things. Dr. Gerson, he did something called the Gerson therapy. And I did a modified one after I had that little surgery and had that healing, just because I wanted to be aware of it. It was such a well-known one at the time. And so he did like 8 juices, carrot juices a day. Now, if someone has like diabetes or some issues that they can't do that much, carrots are alkaline, but they're sweet.
Yeah.
So they recommend now to put like some lettuce, like romaine lettuce, some celery, some cucumber. So when I make mine, or I might buy, they're called cold press. And the reason why by cold press is that the enzymes are still in. So, because when you're, like I said, when you're sick, you need as much help as you can from the food, which is from the enzymes that help digest, help. Again, your cells need to be cleaned out, and then you're putting back in. So I'd say the carrots, beets, I do put in some time, or I buy some with beets and carrot together, and then celery, cucumber. And thing I like about cucumber is it puts a lot of liquid. So,
Oh,
if you just
yeah.
do carrots, you're going to be juicing a while to get all that liquid. So, and then for the smoothies, what I like is I found a recipe. It's actually from Tropical Smoothie. It's called avocalada. So you could put a little bit of avocado, some coconut milk. Let's see, what else is in that one? Mango, not a lot of fruit, and then some spinach and some kind of greens.
Yeah.
And I really actually like that one a lot. And sometimes I'll just buy some, put them in the freezer, because sometimes I'm busy, and I'm always make sure and there's one thing that Kathy, who is one of our colleagues, she's always, best, better, and good. And so
Yeah.
some of these things, if you buy them, they're, better, but they're best if you make your own. But I'd
Yes.
rather somebody buy stuff and get it done rather than not have time and then not do it at all. So, and yeah, so I don't know if that
Wow.
answers your question.
Um, do you need any special equipment? I mean, if you're going to make smoothies and juices, do you need like a blender and a juicer?
Yeah, that was probably the first thing I bought. Was I would say invest in a good blender, and two of the better ones are Vitamix, and I think there's another one, but Vitamix is one I've had since 2007. I still have the same motor. I unfortunately left a spoon in it once, and I ruined the blade, so I had to get a new carafe. But so I would say that because it makes the texture really smooth.
Okay.
And my daughter has one of the other brands that it just doesn't make it as smooth. And now she's kind of perfected it, so it is pretty good. But I mean, the texture is kind of important. And then the juicer, I did try different juicers, some that were less expensive, but I ended up with the one more expensive one, again, just because it's part of my lifestyle, and I wouldn't go buy
Yes.
a cheap oven or cheap dishwasher. And again, though, people need to do what they can. There was a truck driver. He ended up, somebody got on his, he on his route with him, and they were doing raw food, but he was on 20 medications and really very, very, very
Wow.
obese and very sick. And they just he said he went to Walmart, bought a juicer, and he would just take it with him on his, stop at a rest area and juice. And he got off 19 medications through time. I mean, you don't do this all at once.
No, right.
So I like having the best, but if you can't get the best, get what you can. And the most important thing is do it and use it. And I just know for my life I need to do this, because I don't feel good if I don't do it this way.
You
So
you can tell the difference, can't you?
oh yeah, I definitely tell the difference. Yeah.
Well, you know, how did your family respond to this? Because, I mean, that's out of the norm for them. And they probably were like, well, okay, so what do we do now? Do we have to
Yeah.
conform and do the same thing?
Yeah. My kids were like, I think they were from 8 to 15, around that range. So some of them are in high school and grade school. And my older daughters, well, one of them thought that this was a phase and that was going to come out of it. And one of the first things I tried was sprouting like different seed, because when you sprout seed, they have enzymes, and it's kind of full-blown nutrition in them. So they came in and I had my dining room full of plates with seed sprouting at the time. That's the only way I knew how to do it. So they just were like, what have you gotten yourself into? I had all these appliances and, dehydrator was another one, and juicers. And they were just like, what are you doing? Because now you can find a lot of this, like I said, in stores and in different places. But at the time, they didn't have all this available. So
True.
it just looked like, what are you doing? And I never stopped, you know, cooking for them. Our family's Italian, and oh my gosh, you can imagine,
Oh,
food's very important. And but I also made like things like spaghetti with zucchini and a marinara sauce that you make in the blender, and but I just made food for them the way they were used to, because they just couldn't handle all that there was just too much change for them, and they didn't really feel like, I didn't want to push that on them. And
right.
so I think everybody was kind of like, what happened to her? But, I just,
It's like,
it's,
what wacky farm did you go to
yeah.
put you in
And,
this
and
frame of mind?
yeah. And now that, and they didn't understand that I was like, had that growth and all that stuff. They were pretty busy with school and different things, so they didn't really understand all that. And but now, every once in a while, my daughter's drinking wheatgrass juice, and my son's drinking kombucha, and all kinds of stuff. So I rubbed off, I think, on that. But
Hey,
but
why not?
yeah,
Um, I'm really curious. Can you tell us more about the role of your faith in your health journey?
yeah. That was probably the most important part of this whole thing is, when I was in this really toxic relationship, the Lord just literally, I mean, he always did this. He would just bring books or different things to me. And so there was a season where I was in that. I was trying to figure all that out. How do I do all this? And it got to the point where the church, I had some great elders and people at church really tried to help out, but they finally said, Fran, you need to go out on your own. And
Yeah.
I was pretty terrified because, let alone, I think a higher level than terrified, but I was homeschooling. I had always been at home and, had some home business type things, but I had no idea how I was ever going to do this, to go out on my own. And so I was praying weekly with some people from church, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, how am I going to support myself for work? And and that was the weekend when that lady brought these juicers and all this stuff over in the books. And I really felt like the Lord was saying, this is partly what you're going to do, because that was one step. And the other thing was, when I had the growth, that was a little bit more intense than just the skin cancer. I had gone to church, and there was a verse in that says, have the elders anoint you with oil when you're sick. And I think that's kind of really one of the first things people should do, but they don't think about that. And so I went to church before I actually went to the health center. I had people like pray over me, and I felt like it was a miracle when I was up there, even though they did use stuff, and people up there were, it's not like it wasn't really a Christian place. It was just people that were, loving. And I mean, I could still get emotional about the love I felt from people. It was just unbelievable. It really was. So
Those are when you have those type of friends, those are your lifetime friends.
yeah.
And yeah.
Mhm.
Um, how do you deal with traveling with, juicing and smoothies and stuff?
What I do is I buy, like, I use powder, like green powders and I buy like packets that are real easy to travel with, like coconut powder. because I like to make these matcha drinks. It's a green tea. And so I tend to find when I find stuff like that, I get a bunch of those and I get a lot of that probably now I get it off of Amazon, but or there's
Yeah.
a moringa that comes in little packets again. Those are the main things I carry with me because I can use those anytime, even if I'm on the plane or no matter where I am. And the other thing is I had these green bars that were pretty good too. They have a lot of, nutrients in them. And then when I'm somewhere, I usually go to a grocery store, and most stores nowadays, like I said, it's pretty different. I can go to the, produce department and get just about anything I want. And so I don't always juice fresh when I'm out, or like I said, now they have even these green smoothie places. So I might just go buy stuff like that and go put them in the fridge. I'll buy green juices that are, like I said, are cold pressed. And so I really, or if I get at a gas station, I can always find some green smoothies. They have a lot of sugar, which I don't care for, but I mean, I've never been without. And after doing a water fast, I thought, well, if it comes down to it, I can always drink water. So
Well, that's true. That's true.
yeah, yeah,
Water always kind of helps fill you up.
yeah, it
Um,
does. Yeah.
what are the roles of emotions and stress on recovery and maintaining your optimal health?
The one thing after I did the food, and had like that, growth shrink, I still didn't feel 100%, but I still was under lots of stress at the time. And I had gone to somebody that did some kind of testing, and she was telling me that, the food is great, but it's not the only thing. And I think that was about the time I had another person who I'm actually a prayer minister with Hallelujah Acres, or a health minister with Hallelujah Acres. And they also had like certification and all this stuff that I got. Well, somebody saw me on Facebook and messaged me, who lived in Ohio, and said, "Hey, I'd like to learn more." And so he literally brought me another 15 books on like rejection and fear and unforgiveness. It's like a whole series. And I'm telling you, it was like step two of healing, because I had that book like 3 or 4 years before, but I wasn't ready for it. And I literally threw it away because it was like too overwhelming for me to think about the emotion. And I was in the middle of so much stress. I couldn't even read that book at the time. But when it came back, I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to look at this now. And I was ready at that point. And so I learned so much about like how fear and how, rejection. I mean, it literally, even scripture says like about the bones. I mean, envy is rottenness to your bones. I mean, it just kind of sounds harsh, but there's so much even in scripture about, the role of emotions and, you know, gladness, put, gladness in your heart. And especially when you're not feeling good or around people that are not supportive, it takes a lot to go against that grain. And so I definitely went through several series of these. It's like a 8 week process, and then that's when I got certified in Alaska to teach that as well, and to help people deal with some of that part of disease. And even at the health center, one lady had like breast cancer, and she could not heal with the food. And finally, they figured out she had unforgiveness towards somebody. And after she forgave them, actually the tumor went away. And, so sometime it really, you got to do I call food the cleanup, but there's usually a lot more underneath that needs to happen if somebody's not getting better. And so I do I've just been through that whole thing too, and I have other stories, but I won't get into that right now about just like
Well,
the
I
interesting
well,
things